A woman reached out to me, claiming she's my half-sister from an affair my father had, and she's asking for half of the $400,000 inheritance I received, backing her claim with DNA evidence and letters showing my dad supported her and her mother, his affair partner, for years. I'm a 35-year-old man, and my father passed away about 6 months ago. In his will, he left me his house and a small business, valued together at roughly $400,000. Growing up, I believed I was my father's only child. My parents split about 20 years ago when I was a teen due to my dad's infidelity. He never shared much about the affair, and I had no clue it resulted in a child. After the divorce, I lived with my mom but kept in touch with my dad. Our relationship was rocky for a time, but we eventually reconciled and grew close. Fast forward to now, a few weeks ago, a woman contacted me out of nowhere, claiming to be my half-sister from that affair. I'll call her Sarah, not her real name, and she's 26. She first sent a letter, then we spoke on the phone. I was completely stunned by the news. I had no idea she existed. In her letter, Sarah included copies of old letters my dad wrote to her mother, the woman he had the affair with. The letters, from over 20 years ago, were in my father's handwriting and even mentioned a baby girl by name. One letter clearly stated he was her father. Additionally, Sarah mentioned she has DNA evidence from a genealogy service that connected her to a relative on our side. She offered to take a sibling DNA test with me if I wanted further proof. Her evidence was compelling, making it hard to doubt her claim. On the phone, Sarah was courteous but sounded nervous. She explained that my father had been sending money to her and her mother over the years, which helped them get by, though he was never openly part of her life. According to Sarah, in the last year of his life, my dad promised to make things right by providing for her financially, likely by updating his will or giving her something substantial. Unfortunately, he passed away before making any changes. As it stands, his will didn't mention her, and everything was left to me. Now Sarah is requesting that I honor what she believes was my father's wish by splitting the inheritance evenly, meaning about $200,000 or shared ownership of the house and business, which together are worth around $400,000. She has 2 young children and is struggling financially, also caring for her elderly mother, who's in poor health, though I don't know all the details. I told her I needed time to think it over, but honestly, my gut reaction was to say no. I was still processing the shock of learning my dad had a secret daughter for 26 years. During our call, I wasn't feeling particularly generous or trusting. I didn't raise my voice, but I was probably distant and curt in my responses, saying I wasn't ready to decide and ending the call quickly. Sarah seemed upset as we hung up, her voice shaky, which made me feel guilty, but I was also angry and confused by this sudden situation. Legally, I know I don't owe her anything. The will is clear and everything is mine. Morally, though, I'm conflicted. Part of me sympathizes with her. It's not her fault she was born from my dad's affair. It sounds like she and her mom had a tough time, and if my dad truly promised to help her, her current situation must be painful. But I also feel resentful that my father never told me about her, leaving me to handle his hidden past. Splitting the inheritance isn't a small matter either. It's not just money, it's a house and a business. To give her half, I'd likely need to sell one or take out a huge loan. The business is my livelihood, and the house holds deep sentimental value as the home I grew up in. These assets are central to my life, and giving up half would disrupt my financial security and plans. I haven't told my mom about this yet. Bringing up my dad's affair and a secret child would reopen old wounds she's moved past. I'd rather not involve her unless it's unavoidable. For now, I've only told Sarah I need time. She's been polite, not pushy, but followed up with an email detailing her situation and reiterating that she thinks splitting the inheritance is what my dad would have wanted. She insists she's not being greedy, just seeking fairness for her family. I've been wrestling with this. I'm leaning toward not splitting it 50-50 as she asked, maybe offering a smaller amount or setting up something for her kids. But I worry that offering less could make her feel shortchanged or lead to conflict. No matter what I choose, someone's likely to be hurt. I'm just trying to figure out what's the least wrong decision. Am I wrong for not wanting to split my inheritance with a half-sister I just learned about? Update 1. It's been a few days since I shared this, and I've appreciated the feedback. Many suggested I verify Sarah's claims, DNA my dad's involvement before deciding. That resonated with me. I needed to be certain, so I took some steps. First, I agreed to Sarah's offer for a sibling DNA test. Since we live about an hour apart in the same state, we met briefly at a lab to provide samples. The encounter was awkward. We exchanged polite greetings but didn't talk much. We were both tense. It's not every day you test to confirm a secret sibling. Results were expected in a week, but we paid to rush them. While waiting, I dug into my dad's financial records as the executor of his estate. I hadn't thoroughly reviewed his older transactions before, focusing mainly on immediate estate matters. Going back years, I found regular payments starting about 25 years ago, continuing until roughly a year before his death. They were often quarterly, some labeled with Sarah's mother's name. It seems my dad sent a few $100s monthly to help with Sarah's expenses. The amounts weren't huge but added up over time. The payments stopped about a year ago, likely when my dad's cancer worsened and he couldn't manage his affairs. The DNA results came back yesterday, confirming with 99.9% certainty that Sarah and I share a parent, clearly my father, given our ages and the evidence. I wasn't shocked, but seeing it in writing was jarring. I needed a moment to process. I called Sarah, who had seen the results too. She asked quietly, "So you believe me now?" I said yes and apologized for my coldness in our first talk. She apologized for springing this on me. The call was friendly but brief. We didn't discuss the inheritance in depth. I told her I was reviewing everything and would follow up soon. She thanked me for taking it seriously. So Sarah is definitely my half-sister, and I've confirmed my dad supported her and her mom for years. This gives me more context. I haven't decided on the inheritance yet, but will consider this new information and maybe seek professional advice. I'll update again soon. Update 2. Another week has passed, and I've had more talks with Sarah to understand her life and my father's role in it. I decided a face-to-face meeting was necessary, so I visited her at her home, as her responsibilities with her kids and mother made it hard for her to travel. I drove an hour to her small 2-bedroom rental in a modest neighborhood. Her kids, a 6-year-old watching TV and a toddler napping, were nearby, and her mother, whom I'll call Ellen, was resting in another room. We talked in her small living room. Seeing Sarah in person, I noticed a resemblance to our dad around her eyes, which was unsettling but real. Sarah shared her story. Her mom, Ellen, and my dad had an affair years ago. When Ellen got pregnant, my dad panicked, given his existing family. Ellen didn't expect him to leave us but wanted to keep the baby. My dad agreed to provide financial support discreetly. Ellen raised Sarah alone, never marrying or having other children. My dad's payments helped with basics, but money was tight. Sarah grew up knowing about her father but was told he couldn't be openly involved. She didn't meet him in person until she was 18 at a coffee shop where he apologized for his absence. It was an emotional but awkward meeting. They met a few more times and spoke occasionally by phone, especially as my dad aged. When my dad was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, he contacted Sarah more often, likely grappling with guilt. About a year ago, as his health declined, he promised to provide for her and Ellen, possibly by updating his will. Tragically, he didn't follow through before passing. Sarah's current situation is tough. Ellen, in her late 60s, has severe dementia, requiring constant care. Sarah, a single mom, is her primary caregiver while raising her 2 kids. She does part-time freelance work, bookkeeping and data entry, but can't manage a full-time job. The father of her kids provides minimal child support. My dad's payments had helped with a part-time aide for Ellen, but when they stopped during his illness, Sarah had to reduce the aide's hours, increasing her caregiving load. Hearing this, I felt for her. Seeing her modest home and hearing her struggles made it clear she's carrying a heavy burden with limited resources. We discussed the inheritance. I was open about my concerns, how the house and business are tied to my life, and how giving up half would be challenging. I also admitted my frustration with our dad for leaving this mess. Sarah was empathetic, saying she's also upset with him. She didn't want conflict and only asked for half because she believed it was his intent. She made it clear she doesn't see me as an obstacle but wants a fair resolution. We both gained perspective. There were tears, hers and mine, but also relief. We parted with a tentative hug, and Sarah expressed hope we could stay in touch. I agreed, though it'll take time. I plan to consult my dad's lawyer next for clarity on his intentions. I'll update soon. Update 3. I met with my father's lawyer, Mr. K, who drafted his will. I explained Sarah's claim and asked if my dad ever mentioned revising his estate plan. Mr. K confirmed that about 11 months before my dad's death, he discussed creating a trust for Sarah and a smaller provision for Ellen, with the house and business still going to me. The trust was to be around $100,000, but the new will was never signed. My dad reviewed the draft but fell gravely ill soon after, likely thinking he had more time. His health declined rapidly, and the update was never finalized. Mr. K suggested my dad hesitated to avoid family drama but ran out of time. Legally, I'm in the clear. The existing will names me as the sole heir, and Sarah has little ground to challenge it. However, Mr. K noted I could voluntarily give her something to honor my dad's wishes, possibly through a family settlement. He advised a written agreement to clarify it's a goodwill gesture, not an obligation, to avoid future issues. This gave me clarity. My dad intended to provide for Sarah, but not an equal split. The $100,000 figure stuck with me as a reasonable amount. I'm close to deciding, but will take a couple more days before talking to Sarah. I'll share the outcome in my final update. Update 4, final. I've made my decision and met with Sarah to discuss it. I won't split the inheritance 50-50, but will give her a one-time gift of $95,000. This amount considers what I can afford without selling assets, what would meaningfully help her, and my dad's plan for a $100,000 trust. We met at a lawyer's office with my attorney, who drafted an agreement for the transfer. I explained that I verified her claims and learned about the draft will. I acknowledged her as my dad's daughter and his intent to provide for her, but noted that giving half the estate would be too difficult. Instead, I offered $95,000 to honor his wishes and support her family. Sarah was quiet at first, then teared up and said, "Thank you so much." She'd feared I'd offer nothing, and this amount would secure care for her mom and ease her financial strain. I was relieved. She was genuinely grateful, not upset. We signed an agreement stating the money is a voluntary gift, ensuring clarity. Afterward, Sarah gave me a heartfelt hug, crying as she expressed how much this would help. I told her I think our dad would approve. We discussed staying in touch as family, though it'll be gradual. We exchanged contact info and parted on warm terms. A few weeks ago, I wondered if I was wrong for hesitating. Now I see this was just a complex family matter. I'm glad we found a fair compromise. Thanks to those who offered advice, it guided me to the right steps.